Cool. Hello, I'm Brandon Cameron,
I'm Gemma Assumption.
I'm Grace Absher.
I'm Sarah Wolf.
and we're doing a case study number 6 on the academic admission scandal.
All right.
Thank you, Dad.
Okay, the first question asks, discuss how or whether each of the following theories would be helpful in understanding and explaining the behaviors the perpetrators engaged in. And the first question is Sykes and Matz's techniques of neutralization. And we said we think, like, in the moment, this theory applies because the parents that are paying for their children to fix their SAT scores, they have to understand that there's some sort of that's not the way it's supposed to be, that there's something wrong with that, so they have to neutralize that guilt that they feel in order to be able to complete this payment or go through with the process of it. And also Geraldine, who's not here today, said that she thinks one of the aspects of the theory applies, which is denial of injury, and that especially the celebrity parents or any of the parents are denying that their actions are going to affect anybody else. It's just helping their child. It's not hurting anybody else. But in reality, there are other students and parents that are working hard, full-time jobs, to get their children into college legally, and this is hindering their ability to get that fair chance.
Yeah, and I think when they were committing the crime itself, they kind of had denial that it even was a crime if they were committing crime, since they were justifying it by saying, oh, I'm helping my child, this is what I need to do, help my children. So I think they use it that way also.
And I feel like they do it they're just thinking of their children, and they don't really, I guess, feel that guilt until they actually get caught.
Yeah.
If they weren't caught, they're just oh, I got my kid into college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second theory is the general theory of crime, which has to do with a lack of self-control. And then we said we didn't really think this one applied just because there's a long process involved with cheating your kid's way into school, and it's not really an impulsive in the heat of the moment decision.
Might be a lack of self-control from the kids to not do that well in school, but that's not a legally released.
That's not criminal.
Exactly.
And I feel that also stems from maybe the parents' expectations for their kid to get into a good college, especially if it's a celebrity parent and it's my kid, they have to go to a good school, then they must be thinking about that over time, down the road.
Yeah, and that also applies to the next one, which is strain theory. So obviously the celebrity parents have this pressure of their kids have to live up to a certain standard, standards of other celebrity kids, or their standards. So they have to get into a good college so they can get a good job. Basically just they have the pressure from onlookers, from fans, from other celebrities for their children to do the best that they can, and so it leads them to commit that crime. Okay, and then the next one is enemy theory, which I think we also said applies to this one.
So that focuses on more how the American dream or how the general cultural society affects this. And kind of as you stated, it's kind of this idea that we create a better life for our kids, So I think in that way, this applies because they wanted to set their kids up for success to be, hopefully even more successful than they were. And I don't know if, that's how they kind of thought when they did commit the crime.
And I think that's every parent wants their kid to be more successful than them, but not every parent commits a crime.
Yeah.
And I feel with that theory, specifically, this group of people is a little offset, since they don't have the economic stress of being unable to pay for college, since they're all able to pay for their kids to go to college. But the idea, what Brandon said, the American dream, in order to be successful, one has to attend an Ivy League or a really high intense school. So I think that factors into the anomie in that way, since they don't have the economic stress, but there's still that need to attain the American dream.
Okay, and the last one is the social learning theory.
We said this one kind of applied and then kind of maybe interacted with like subculture theory in a way. If there's that talk of like celebrities can pay their way through anything, like money can buy anything, if there's just that kind of like attitude and subculture within those communities, that could maybe affect like how they perceive things. Like they look at college and SAT scores and think, well, I can just pay my way through that, since that's just kind of like a learned way of like how they think they can live their lives. So I think you can apply in that way.
Also, particularly like if they know, we've seen in cases that even if they do get caught, they're often not as hard as strict punishment for those in the limelight a lot of times. So that could also have been a factor for the way they committed it.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question asked, what other additional theories can apply to this? And like we mentioned, subculture, and I think also like classical theory could work, because obviously they've performed some sort of cost-benefit analysis, like get my kid into like an Ivy League, I probably won't get caught. Even if I do, the consequences of me getting caught are nothing compared to the fact that like my kid got into an Ivy League, or because I can pay for it.
Yeah, it's just fine if they can pay for $1 million, however big of a fine if they need to.
I think also like social bonds, like Mary talked about it in class, how kind of like the opposite view versus looking at it, people commit crime, if people won't commit crime if they're like attached to their community or involved in the community, versus this is they commit the crime maybe because they aren't involved with those aspects. And since they are like separated, like since they are such like high level like celebrities, they're kind of separated from different communities where people like have to like apply for loans to get into college and things like that. So they again don't see that aspect of like injuring other like people in the process, since they're unable to see it from the same view because they are like isolated from those communities.
Yeah, kind of to like go off that, their social bond is to their family, and in order to help that bond, to strengthen that bond in a sense, they need to commit something illegal. So that could also be another factor. Any last?
I think so.